All right, let's dive into one of the most famous stories ever told, Noah's Ark and the Great Flood. You know the basics, right? A huge boat, a bunch of animals, a whole lot of rain. But what if I told you there's way more to it than that?
What if this ancient account isn't just a simple, chronological story, but an incredibly clever piece of writing with a hidden symmetry? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and uncover a secret literary structure right at the heart of the flood narrative that shows us what the story is really all about.
So, first, let's just set the scene. This is not just a big rainstorm. The way the text describes it, the world is literally being returned to a state of watery chaos, just like it was before creation. It's an act of decreation, like the whole world order is being completely unmade. Now, look, flood stories aren't unique to Genesis. You find them in a lot of ancient cultures, like the famous Epic of Gilgamesh. But the biblical account has this particular kind of literary genius to it, a really intricate structure that just sets it apart, and we're about to decode it.
For 150 days, that's how long the story says the waters dominated the earth. And you gotta understand, this wasn't just a waiting period. It was a time of colossal judgment, a time when all land-dwelling, air-breathing life that wasn't on that ark was gone. The text is super specific about this catastrophe. Water didn't just fall from the sky. No, it erupted from below, too. The fountains of the Great Deep burst open, which sounds a lot like massive geological upheavals. And at the same time, the windows of heaven opened up. It was a two-front assault on the entire world. And this right here brings us to the core of this whole thing. The story isn't just a straight line. It's actually built around a secret center, a pivot point where the entire narrative perfectly folds in on itself. This is done with a cool literary trick called a chiasmus. Okay, so what on earth is a chiasmus? Well, basically, it's a symmetrical pattern. A story builds up to a central idea, and then it unwinds in the exact reverse order. Think of it like a narrative palindrome. It's a way for the author to put a giant, flashing arrow on what they think is the most important moment. So the pattern works like this. You have event A, then B, then C. You build up to this climax, this X moment. And then everything that follows is a mirror image of what came before. You get C again, but in reverse. Then B in reverse. Then A. The story literally undoes itself step by step. So what's the X moment? What's the dead center of the entire flood story? It's this one simple, powerful line from Genesis chapter 8, verse 1. This isn't just a minor detail. This is the structural and thematic center of the whole account. Everything builds to this moment, and everything unwinds from it. It's the critical shift from judgment to rescue. And what's really amazing is just how perfectly this story reverses itself after this pivot point. The second God remembers Noah, every single action that led to the flood is undone, one by one, in perfect symmetry. Let's trace the pattern. See this? The story says the waters prevailed for 150 days, and the perfect mirror to that? After exactly 150 days, the waters start to go down. That's not a coincidence. It's a precise symmetrical reversal. The time of rising judgment is perfectly matched by an equal time of receding grace. And the pattern just keeps going, brilliantly, with the landscape itself. The rising waters cover the highest mountains. That's the peak of the decreation. And the reversal? The waters decrease until the very same mountaintops are visible again. It's a perfect undoing. Here's another incredible parallel. At the start of the whole thing, God himself shuts Noah in, a divine act of protection. The mirror image is an act of human initiative. After 40 days, it's Noah who opens the window to look out. The closing and the opening, their perfect narrative bookends. And you know, this wasn't written as some vague once-upon-a-time story. The author gives us a precise 371-day timeline. From the very first raindrop to the moment Noah steps back onto dry land, the entire year is documented with specific dates. It's meant to be read as a real historical event. And here's a wild little detail from the original Hebrew. The waters didn't just drain away quietly like a bathtub. The text describes them as going and returning. You get this picture of a powerful, constant ebbing and flowing, almost like massive, continent-spanning tides that were scouring and literally reshaping the entire face of the planet.
So as the waters finally recede, the story moves into its last act, the reemergence of life and the founding of a brand new world.
So how does Noah know it's safe to go out? He sends out a few scouts. First, a raven, which is a scavenger, so it can handle a messy environment. But it's the dove that tells the real story. First, it comes back with nothing. Then it comes back with an olive leaf, a sign of new life. And finally, it doesn't come back at all, signaling that the earth was ready for life again.
And what's the very first thing Noah does when he steps onto dry ground? It's an act of worship. He builds an altar. And this finally explains why God told him to bring 7 pairs of the clean animals. Those extra pairs were meant for this exact moment, for the very first sacrifice in a cleansed world. And in response to that act of worship, a promise is made. All the natural cycles of the world, the seasons, the rhythm of day and night, all the things that had been so violently stopped, are now reestablished. It's a promise that the chaos of the flood will never happen again.
So we can see this story is just a stunning piece of literary architecture, but it also claims to be about something that really happened. So what happens when we take the details from this ancient text and stack them up against what we can find out from modern science?
Well, for centuries, tradition has said the ark landed on Mount Ararat. But here's the geological puzzle. Ararat is a type of volcano whose shape shows it almost certainly formed in the open air, probably after any kind of global flood. But an alternative site, Mount Kuti, is made of marine limestone that would have been there at the time. It's this fascinating debate where ancient literature, tradition, and geology all crash into each other, reminding us that sometimes the oldest stories hold the deepest secrets.